Today we're going to talk about the LaFontaine Sparkle Pupa and the Emerger version. Right now you're looking at the Sparkle Pupa version, and what we're going to really be focusing on is making a nice even bubble. Yes, this is a tips and tricks video, but we're going to structure it a little different because we're going to tie a complete pattern. What you see right now in the vise is the pupa version. We're going to do the emerger version. The main thing we want to focus on is the bubble. Isn't it amazing how we can just make a hook appear in the vise through the magic of video? Anyway, we're going to start by, we've got this number 8 hook in the vise, and we don't normally tie this fly in this large of a size, more in the 8s and, in the 10s and 12s, and a lot in the 14, 16, and 18. But for demonstration purposes, we're going to do it in a size 8 so you can better see what we're doing. We're going to start on the shank about a third back from the eye. And we'll just put a couple of turns of that brown thread in place. We're going to grab a piece of this Antron yarn, and tie that in place right there on top of our thread base, and it's on the side of the hook away from us. In fact, I'm going to give it a twist to make sure it's on the side of that hook away from us. Now we're going to take a comb used for applying mascara and so forth to eyebrows. Anyway, it's an eyebrow brush or comb, and we're combing out that Antron so that we can loop it around and tie it on the near side of the hook as well. Let me just trim that off. All right. And now we're going to cut that yarn in the center and pull them to the sides of the hook. Notice how I'm kind of holding down on that. Okay, now we're going to move in and make sure that those are nicely separated fibers. And we're going to push down and grab. Notice how I'm grabbing with these two fingers right here. And we're going to take several wraps of thread right up tight against them. Now we'll relax, move the fingers back. What I want you to notice is what that's doing is pressing the fibers both above and below and around the hook. And that we're using a pinch technique right there as we wrap our thread, and that forces those fibers around the hook shank. That's really kind of important. Now we move back. So what we're doing now is we're wrapping, pinch, move back, wrap, pinch, move back until we reach the end of the hook shank. Got a wild one in here, so let's just get rid of that. I'm going to wrap up forward here and tie off my thread. We'll reattach it again later, but for right now we're just going to get rid of it. And now we're going to put on the body, but we're wrapping towards the bend. We'll stop just before we get to the back of the hook there and trim off the waist and wrap back forward almost all the way to our starting point. You'll see why in a moment, why we didn't quite go all the way back. We'll stop right there, get our whip finish tool, and whip finish off the body. And pull that into place there. Put that tool away, trim off the waist, and set that aside for the moment. We'll use the bodkin just to make sure that these are spread evenly on both sides. You see how we've even got them down on the underneath side of the hook here. You can probably see it better from this direction. We've got an even distribution around the hook. That's kind of important. Now we're going to do something that seems kind of crazy, but you'll see why here in just a moment. We're going to turn our hook around in the vise and turn it in this direction. Now I'm going to reposition the camera so that we can shoot the next segment. Now we'll kind of futz around with this a little bit, just kind of get it out away from the hook in all the different directions here. And you can use a comb, that will kind of help. Or another thing that kind of helps is a little brush. This is one that I think Gretchen got out of a hair dye kit when she was dyeing hair for our daughter-in-law. But see, it kind of spreads that out. And now we can come in behind and start to push this forward. And get that all in the forward and around and let it pop back until we get it just the way we want, all pulled forward and with even distribution around the hook. And we'll just kind of pinch that in place, and then we're going to have to reverse our hook. Now we'll reposition the hook back in the vise. Notice how I'm kind of holding that along the hook shank there. We'll just let that pop back now. Now it's time to reattach our thread. I'll grab my thread and scissors and get it all reattached right up here at the front, right behind the hook eye. I'll cross over so I don't have that come unwound and trim off the waist. Now we're going to push this forward to meet the thread. And we want to get that as evenly distributed around the hook as we can. Now I'm just going to take and take a couple turns of thread. Right up close to the eye there. Good, it didn't lose it there. That darn thread slipped on me. Now, here's where we form the bubble and we keep it consistent. Is what we want to do, is have a nice sparse but consistently placed bubble. Now you can take your thumbnail and push this back, or we're going to take a tool and push back. See how that bubble sings up real there, right there for you? And I'll trim off the waist. So anyway, we'll wrap that all in place, and we'll get ready to put on our wing. The wing is deer hair. We'll put the deer hair wing in place. Notice it's sparse. That's on purpose. We want it to be sparse. We trimmed off our waist and just bind it right there in place. And now we'll get ready to dub the head. We're going to use some soft touch. We're using brown, where normally we would use black, but the brown shows up better in the video, so that's what we'll use. We get up here, right up to the hook eye. Half hitch, followed by a second, and then we'll do a whip finish with the same tool. We'll 3-turn whip finish. That all slides in place. Set that whip finish tool on the side, trim off the waist, and there we've got the completed LaFontaine emerger. And now you know how to make a nice, sparse, but evenly distributed LaFontaine gas bubble.